on, guys? Achilles here, and I'm bringing you. This is something new I'm doing. I'm doing a like a post game commentary. Just there's no tank review behind this. Just a post game commentary. This is one of the games I was playing in the E5 on my friend Dibs' account. He wanted to play a couple of the Chinese tanks, so I figured I'd hop on his account and play. And this is one of the only tier 10s that I do not own or do not have researched. And I've always been neglecting the T110E5. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those tanks that's always eluded me over the course of time playing this game and stuff. I don't know. I've just never really had the drive to get it. But after playing these, like probably say an hour and a half so of just random battles playing the E5, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna eventually pony up and get it eventually. It's one of those tanks that like I don't know how to explain it. It's really good at everything. I mean, there's no real like glaring weaknesses about it. It's got a good turret. It's got good frontal armor. The gun is absolutely fantastic. It's decently fast. It pretty much does everything. So, I mean, despite the turret thing on top, you're not really gonna have any issues getting penned in the front as long as you're at a distance or hold down. Because pretty much the only reason you're ever going to get penned in this tank is if they're either shooting gold or if they're shooting at your turret hatch. And your hull isn't really that big of a deal unless you are really close to them and they can shoot your lower plate no problem. I found that the E5's lower plate is really easy to pen with guns at tier 10. And you just need to do a good job of either keeping your distance or just wiggling the hole and make yourself a hard target. So here you can see the dispersion on the E5's gun is very small. It's very nice. And, you're never really going to have any problems hitting people at a distance with this thing. And you can hit those accurate shots. And as you can see, the DPM's really good as well. I think it's an 8.35 second reload. Yeah, or 8.25. So that's you're spitting out 400 damage every 8.25 seconds. So it's pretty quick. It's pretty close to 215B status, but not quite there. 215B still has probably about a second over you. So the E5, it's one of the tried and true original tier 10s that was in the game. This is one of 5 or 6 original ones, because there was the Jagdpanzer E100, the E50M, the E100, the E5, the E3. And I think maybe the 48 Patton, and then I think the artillery were in there too, but I don't really count those. So the E5 has been around for the long haul, and even despite all of the stuff that's been added into the game since the launch, it's still, I would say, one of the stronger tier 10s in the game. I feel like it's a really competitive tank in Clan Wars just because of how reliable the gun is, and since it's so mobile and it can flex around the map, unlike some of the other heavy tanks like the E100 or whatever. I mean, it's not the best at flexing around the map. The 50B and the 113 are definitely better at that. But the E5 is not slow by any means. And it's got a good solid gun. And pretty much the only real weak spot that you have, really real glaring weak spot that you have, is the cupola on top. You're never really going to have to worry about getting penned anywhere else unless you're really close and they can shoot your lower plate. So, the E5... I got to thinking, oh man, that turret weak spot, it's just so annoying, man. But have you ever thought about what it's going to be like, what the E5's armor profile would be like if it didn't have that? The E5 would be an absolute monster. The E5's cupola is pretty much the balancing factor on the armor on this tank. Because if it didn't have that big of a cupola, or machine gun, it's not even a cupola, and it would be really difficult to pen this tank if it didn't have such a large profile cupola, or if it just was a lot smaller. And I just feel like the E5 is one of those really solid tanks overall, and there's nothing really wrong with it. It's the Swiss Army knife. It does everything. Now, that's one of the things that I was really worried about before I was going to actually go for it back in the past. I'd always rag on the E5 saying, it doesn't really do anything spectacular. It has a decent gun, but pretty much everything else is pretty average. There's nothing real, surprising about it. But now that I've actually played around with it a little bit, and you're going to see the accuracy on this gun in a little bit. Most of these shots I'm putting down over here are going to be pretty much just sniping. I don't know how that one missed, but well, he moved, but Now that I've actually played around with the E5, it's a extremely solid tank. Now, if any of you are thinking about going for the E5, I would highly recommend it. This is a very, very, very user-friendly tank. Your armor is forgiving, and this is one of those tanks that you can make mistakes in and not be 100% punished for it. It's not an E100. If you shoot and you're literally useless for 15 seconds, and they can just punish you no matter what. The E5, you cut that reload time in half. You're a lot more scary, and you can dish out damage a lot quicker than the E100 can. But the E100 packs that extra punch, and I feel like the E100 is a very high skill gap tank, just because of how difficult it is to use the AP shells with the accuracy of the gun. And the only reason I even say that if the skill gap is just because if you're not shooting heat with the E100, the E100 is a very difficult tank to use and be very proficient with it. But the E5, it's a little bit more user friendly. Now, I'm not saying it's like a noob tank, but it's a lot easier to use than, say, an E100 if you're not shooting gold, but most people do, so never mind, scratch that. So, I thought this was a really good gameplay, just showcasing the E100 or the E5 strengths. You're going to see this pretty clutch reset here by me and Dibs. He was playing on my account, and I didn't think we were actually going to win this game. Well, I didn't want to ruin it, but, we actually get the reset and win the game. So, I just thought I'd do this live com for you guys. Give my thoughts on the E5, and just give you my general consensus. I feel like this is one of the 3 strongest American Tier 10 tanks. I would say that the E3 is the strongest. I would probably say this is the second strongest, and then I would say that this is the most stronger than the. I don't know. The T57 and the E5 are debatable because on some maps I would rather have a T57 and then on others I would rather have an E5. So if we're talking something like a city map, I would rather have a T57 just for sheer DPM. But if we're talking like something like Corellia, I would rather have an E5 because it's got a super reliable gun and it's got a decent hit pool and armor. So, the E5, it's one of those tried and true heavies. It kind of fits the bill of semi-medium thing, but it has armor. And it's reliable armor too. It's not 215B armor. As you saw when I poked up to shoot the Death Star, he bounced a shot off my turret. So you're going to be getting that a lot if they miss their shot. Man, I actually get lucky here, and one of my teammates takes him out. And the Death Star can't take AP shells, or the E5 can't take AP shells, or can take AP shells, unlike the 215B can. The 215B is a paper target, along with the 113. Well, not with the 113, but the 215B. That tank is really it's hard to bounce TD shots with that thing. But hope you guys enjoy the video. It's been Achilles. I'll catch you guys later.